Hi folks, Tim here, and welcome back to From 8 to 38, the Chronicles of a Young Entrepreneur. Today we are going to discuss the numbers and the math behind successfully bidding a job. And there is a lot of variables. There's so many variables between every different job, what I do, what other people do for a living, and it depends on what you're paying your employees. Do you have employees? It can be very, very area specific. So this is area specific for Ulster County, New York. This is kind of the numbers that we're using in this area. But if you're in Florida, your numbers are going to be different. If you're in the Midwest, your numbers are probably going to be different. One of the things that's going to stay the same across, kind of across the country, is the purchase price of your machinery. So much of that is set by the manufacturer, and there's a little bit of wiggle room here and there, but there's not a lot. So your labor rates are going to change a little bit, your insurances are going to change a little bit. Based off what state you're in, the amount that you pay for fuel is going to vary greatly. So we're going to go over all those things and more in this video today. So let's dive right into it. Now, one of the things that I did, and you'll see behind me, there's actually a whiteboard, and I wrote down everything because there is no way I could possibly remember exactly every little minute detail. So what I want to get into today is how to take that number that's in your head. Let's say that you think your business costs X amount to run, or you need to make X amount an hour to make a profit. I'm going to show you how to really break those numbers down and really figure out exactly how much it costs to, in our case, run a zero-turn mower per hour. So that's what I'm working on here today. That's what we're working with today, is how to bid a lawn and how to bid it so that you actually make money. So the numbers I'm working with here today are all developed off of an Exmark zero-turn. Now, Exmark is the brand that we use. Now, whether you're using Exmark or Skag, Toro, Ferris, all of them are in the same price range. So your number might vary by 50 cents or $1 an hour, but it's not going to vary a lot. So this is based off of our top-of-the-line Exmark that I run, based off of the amount of fuel consumption it uses, how much an oil change is, blades, stuff like that. So let's jump right into that right now. Okay, so right here you can see we've got bidding a job, lawn mowing breakdown, real simple. So one of the things that we look at is basically our zero turn. They cost $20,000. They have a practical life, in my mind, a practical life of 2,500 hours. Now, I've kind of listed the 2,500 hour mark. That's where things really start going wrong. They're definitely still plenty usable up to the 4,000 or even higher hour mark. But around here we go for about 2,500 hours. That gives us 4 to 5 good years out of this mower before we start seeing a lot of problems. Now, you'll see belts and other miscellaneous small things go before that 2,500 mark. But once you start getting that 2,500 mark, you're looking at spindles and wheel motors, hydraulic pumps. You can see the clutch go, all kinds of different things like that. So that's what we've based this off of. Now, when running a business, you really need to think about, okay, this mower costs X, or the truck costs whatever the truck costs. You need to figure out a realistic timeline of when this thing is going to be replaced. So I figured this in here. At $20,000, 2,500 hour life for this machine, every single hour I need to be putting aside $8 per hour as a replacement cost. So that is a true number of what it costs to run this mower. The next thing, and it's glaringly obvious for most of us, is just how much does it cost to run one of these machines per hour fuel-wise. Well, that's pretty easy to figure out. You fill it up at the beginning of the day, you figure out how many hours you put on the meter, you fill it up again, and that's going to give you your gallons per hour. Now, I happen to know the one I'm running is right around 2 gallons per hour. Might be slightly less than that, 1.8, 1.9, but just for argument's sake, I did 2 gallons an hour. Now I'm running this number off of $4.50 per gallon fuel price. Now right now we're somewhere in the $3.90 to $4 range. A couple years ago we were almost $6. And our non-ethanol, which is what we are usually running in most of our machinery, is about 450 a gallon, or I think it's actually 470 a gallon currently. But let's say 450 a gallon because that's what I ran these numbers off of. So at 2 gallons per hour, it's costing $9 an hour in fuel to run this mower. Now we also figured out a lot of other things that you can see here. Our oil changes. Every 50 hours we do an oil change, and that costs about $40. Now we do all of this smaller mechanical work in-house. So I'm not bringing it to a dealer. I don't have downtime. We do it on a rainy day. So usually it's somewhere in 50, 60, maybe 70 hours on an oil change. I like to go as close to 50 as we can. But it costs about $40 to do an oil change, which gives us our 80 cent an hour number. Blades we do about every 100 hours. Now, sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. Depends on, we were on a property the other day and they did a bunch of planting and they left a whole bunch of rocks in the middle of the yard. Well, I'm pretty sure I found every single one of them, and we had to do a blade change after that. So we figure a set of blades is about $60, about $20 a blade after tax. At 100 hours is 60 cents an hour. Another thing that you don't often think about is your tires. Now, if you're doing a lot of commercial stuff without a lot of hills, you can get a lot of hours out of tires. We are finding 800 hours is kind of a good mid-ground. 1,000 hours, they really need to be replaced. Sometimes we have to do it sooner based off of what we find on people's properties. You never know that miscellaneous thing that you're going to find. We patch our tires, so that's kind of figured in there as well a little bit further down here on the other miscellaneous wear items at $2 an hour. So the other miscellaneous wear items is things like bringing the machine into the dealer to get the hydraulic system serviced. So we did that with our mower last year, thankfully, because we had a piece go down, but it was under warranty because we brought it into the dealer for that particular service. But $2 an hour covers some of the blades, it covers your deck wheels, those anti-scalp wheels, other miscellaneous things that might just go bad on it, whether it be the fuel filter you need to replace, the air filter. I could have listed all those things. It didn't make sense to do it. That was best to just put other miscellaneous wear items, $2 an hour. I put here, hopefully you all can read my writing, 1 hour of maintenance every 50 hours. That's when we do our service, is about every 50 hours. I figure my time is worth about $40 an hour. So, break that down to the 50-hour mark. It's 80 cents an hour to do that maintenance. Then I brought in liability insurance. Now, we have a general liability policy on the business. Especially helpful if you think you're going to put a rock through a window. Fortunately, we have not put a rock through a house window. Did have somebody bounce a rock off of a garage the other day, and the guy who was working for me actually put the rock through his own car window. So it's good to have insurance. Liability insurance costs me about $2 an hour. Again, these are general numbers. It's really going to depend on what type of work you do. The snow numbers are definitely different than the lawn mowing numbers, and if you're running a tree business, your insurance is astronomically higher than mine. And then the truck insurances are about $12 a day, or $1.50 an hour if you figure an 8-hour day. So all in all, the zero turn, as far as running the business from that standpoint, costs $25.20 an hour. Now, that might not seem like that bad of a number. So that's if you were running the business yourself. You don't have any employees, anything like that. Let's throw an employee in there. So here's our employee actual numbers. I mean, these are real numbers here in New York. It's pretty hard to get away from these. The employee hourly rate is $25 an hour. Around here, you are not going to find anyone unless you're paying 20 or more. So I use 25 an hour kind of as a round number. It made things a little bit easier math-wise. Workers' comp is $1.50 an hour. Again, if you run a tree business or something that's considered high risk, your workers' comp is going to be a lot higher than this $1.50 an hour mark. So it's based off of, this rate is based off of how much you pay the employee. So this may even be a little bit higher. I haven't checked it in a little while. The payroll tax is basically a tax that I pay to New York to have an employee on my books. And it's so that the employee doesn't pay quite as much in taxes. So that's a real tax that the business sees that we pay every 2 weeks on our payroll. We have a payroll company that does the accounting for the payroll, cuts the checks, and does the reports to the state and all those type of tax reportings. They charge us about $160 a month or $1 an hour. And vacation time. If you have a full-time employee, you're going to pay for some time off. And I don't care how you do it, whether you pay 80 hours a year or if you give paid holidays or however you work it out. But let's say that you're paying $25 an hour and you give this person 80 hours of vacation time or somewhere in that range, say 10 days off. That equates back to basically $1 an hour. So that's time that they are not going to be working for you that you're paying. So count that back into your actual time as far as how much this employee is costing you. If you add all these up, you see we came to this number of $31.50 an hour for an employee at $25 an hour. Now, if you drop that down to say $20 an hour, all these numbers are going to drop a little bit. So it's going to be probably right in the $25.50 an hour range if you're paying $20 an hour. So these are real numbers. And when I go look at a job, I ask myself, okay, I think it's going to take this much time, and I know that it's going to cost X to get this job done. So if this job is going to cost me $2,500, I probably shouldn't bid it at $2,500, or I'm not going to keep my doors open very long. And again, all these numbers are based off of having an employee. Now, that doesn't count for the time that, as the business owner, I've gone and looked at the job, met with the client, we've got billing of the client, all things like that, that all needs to get figured in as well. So if you figure that you have a lawn that's going to take you about an hour to cut. Now, again, these numbers are just for the zero-turn numbers. Once you get your trimmers in here, the numbers drop a little bit, especially in your machinery area. You're still going to be using fuel and trimmer string and things like that, but that weed whacker number running the weed whacker drops the numbers drastically. But again, just for this, we're running just the zero-turn numbers because it made it a little bit easier rather than getting super detailed. So if we're looking at bidding a lawn, let's say at $60, and we do all the work, and I have one employee there, and he's there for an hour. Now, going by these numbers, $25.20 an hour for mowing the lawn, and I'm doing the work, well then, I'm making about $35 an hour. That's pretty good. Well, as soon as I put an employee there, I'm not making $35 an hour anymore. I'm making a couple dollars an hour. And it may not make sense. So, bottom line is, how much does it cost to mow a lawn? $56.70 an hour. I want you to get that number in your head. $56.70 an hour. Almost $60 an hour to mow a lawn. What about the truck, the trailer, registrations, maintenance, tires? The list goes on. I put that there just because you can't possibly put everything down. So, bottom line, if you're not charging $80 an hour for mowing a lawn, you're losing money. That's the very, very nitty-gritty bottom line. If you're not charging $80 an hour, you're losing money. So one of my friends told me the other day he was charging $60 an hour. That's how he bids his across the spectrum, is $60 an hour to mow lawns. And I said, that's not great, because if your numbers are anything like mine and you've done this kind of math, you realize that you're only making $3.30 an hour to have an employee on the books if they're running a zero-turn. Now, again, these numbers are drastically changed if you have a weed whacker. So we're going to pull that in a little bit here, and I'm going to try to explain that a little bit. So think about numbers like this when you are bidding a job. So almost $40 an hour to run a weed whacker, almost $60 an hour for a zero-turn. So let's put these numbers into a real practical example. I'm going to go bid a lawn, And I know, I've been doing it for a long time, I know that the lawn mowing is going to take an hour, and the trimming along with blowing off the walkways and the patios, the deck, the driveway, etc. is going to take an hour. So the leaf blower and the weed whacker pricing is the same per hour. Okay, so we're called to go look at a lawn, and I'm there bidding it. Now, when I go bid a lawn, it always takes more time than I think. Very rarely is it in and out, look at the lawn, done, 10 minutes, it's going to be X. Usually it's walk the whole property, hear the backstory of why the last guy's no longer working there, all kinds of things like that. So many times to bid a lawn, from the drive time, from the time I leave to the time I get back, plus the time visiting with the client, because remember, this is probably a new client. Most likely it's not a property that we're already working on. If it was, I've already looked at the lawn and know what I should charge. So you figure you've got about an hour and a half of time tied up with that initial client meeting. Now, it's free. We don't charge for that, right? That's something that's just built into the pricing, as it were. You say free estimates, and you go look at lawns. Some of them you get, some of them you don't. So let's say that we're going and looking at this lawn, and I figure that it's going to take me an hour to cut the lawn with a two-man crew. Whether it's myself and another guy or two other guys, whatever the case may be, I like to figure it as 2 employees, and this is what it's going to cost me an hour. So if we figure 2 employees, employee number 1 with the X mark or your zero turn at $56.70 an hour, and employee number 2 with a trimmer or a leaf blower, whatever the case may be, an edger, at $36.50, your 1 hour lawn, which is 2 man hours, is costing $93.20. Now, if you were going to bid that lawn at $100, you are looking at a profit every time your guys go and cut it of $6.80. That doesn't count the drive time on the way there. Maybe they had a 5-minute drive time on the way there and 5 minutes on the way back. It was 5 minutes out of the way. Well, it's only 10 minutes. It's not that long. If it's 10 minutes, you're already in the red. There's no way you made any money on it. All these things are really important things to think about when you're bidding the lawn. So if you're doing a $60 an hour base, let's say that that's kind of what you're running your bid at, this would be a $120 lawn, right? Which is a $26.80 profit. I will say that you're probably not making money at that either, because purchase price of the truck, purchase price of the trailer, your yearly registrations, your maintenance on those trucks and trailers, tires, so on and so forth. You're not making money at $60 an hour. At $80 an hour, you're making money, but probably not as much as you would think. So all these are really important numbers. They're numbers that you need to keep in mind when you're bidding a job. So if I'm looking at a job figuring it's going to take me 2 hours to mow it, I'm bidding it at $75 an hour. That's kind of my basis here. That's with me working. That's not 2 employees. That's myself and an employee. So when it's myself and an employee, this number on the bottom here, it kind of goes away. I'm still paying myself, sure, but as a business owner, we're getting paid. So that number goes away. That $31.50 an hour goes away. So then you figure that's a real number. Your $25.20 an hour to run a zero turn, that's a real number. So you figure that in with your, say, $36.50 an hour for your guy with the weed whacker, the blower. Even if you're the business owner and you're not riding the mower, you're doing the weed whacking, all those numbers still mesh. So we shoot for about $75 an hour. That's where we've found that we can make a profit without being really high priced. And it's an important thing to figure that out, especially from a customer standpoint. And if you know your numbers like this, your customers are not really going to be interested in this detailed breakdown, and definitely not more detailed than that. So when you say that their lawn is going to be $150 and they were paying $120 for the last guy, there's a couple reasons that they're calling you instead of going with the prior guy. One of them that I have found is a lot of people are retiring and getting out of the business. And that purchase price right there, that $20,000 for the lawnmower, that's why. Lawnmower, trucks, trailers, stuff's getting really expensive. So that is the number one reason why we're getting calls. So the second reason we get called is the homeowner, your future client, is very, very upset or unhappy with the level of quality and the reliability of their current provider. So if the guy was charging $120 a cut and we want to come in at $150, that's a $30 difference. Now that might be $30 a week, it might be $30 every 2 weeks. That's a big jump for some people, and it's something that you have to explain to them and sell yourself as far as why we charge more. So why do I charge $150 to cut your lawn and the last guy charged $120? Well, very simply, he was an owner-operator. He was somebody that was 70 years old. He got out of it, he retired. He got too old, he couldn't do it anymore. Or, well, you called me because you were really unhappy with the quality of work that the other company was providing. So, because you want a higher quality job, you're going to pay for a higher quality job. And those are really, really good examples. They're very simple examples. And if you have employees, one of the things that is big right now is paying your employee a living wage, not minimum wage. And I think it goes beyond that a little bit. At least for me, the employee that we have, I've had him for a couple years. He's been great for us. He works hard, and I want to reward him essentially for the work that he's been doing and the quality work that he's been doing. And of course, I want him to stay with us for the next 20 years if we could. But if you take care of your employees, they're going to stick around longer. And maybe they stick around for 4 years instead of 2 years or 1 year. But if you pay them $22 or $25 an hour rather than what everyone else around is paying $15, it's going to make them want to stay with you longer, and they're going to appreciate it more. And, one of the things that I've learned as well, and I explain this to my customers and my clients, I said, we pay our employee well. We pay him well. We're not paying him $13 to $14 an hour. We're paying 50 or 60% more than the average landscaper is paying their guys. And I'm proud of that fact. I'm proud that we can do that. And most of the time, the new client that we're working for, they accept that. And another thing that you can throw in this whole conversation is equipment reliability, right? So I'm going to use round numbers on this because it's so much easier. But this replacement cost number is something that's really important. It's something you got to put it aside. Make sure you've got your own account for equipment replacement or major breakdowns, either one of them. But that should be an account that you don't touch unless it's a dire emergency, right? So at $8 an hour, if we put 10 hours on the clock of our zero turn last week, then $80 should go into this equipment savings fund, or the equipment replacement savings fund, excuse me. So $80 should go into that for every 10 hours you put on that clock. And that needs to be separate from your business operating expenses. Put it aside. Forget it exists. So my bank has an option where I can name the account. So I can name business checking, business savings, special savings, equipment replacement fund. You can name all different things. So, and it doesn't have to be exact, right? So this $8 an hour, I tend to take checks and I look at when we do a check deposit and say, okay, what's the, what kind of matches what we're going to deposit here. So I'll take, a check for a couple $100 and put it in the equipment replacement fund. But when you do that religiously, when it comes time to replace a machine, you can write a check and do it. You don't have to go and get a loan. I mean, right now, some of these loans are 8 and 9% for a lawnmower. It's insane. I cannot imagine having to pay, even better, a plow. The plow is the highest thing out there to finance, the highest percentage point to finance. They're financing plows at 12 to 14% right now. So if I need a new plow at $10,000 and I'm going to go sign a deal at 14%, I'm going to be paying way more per month than I need to. How much nicer to go out, write a check, hand it to them, walk out with a new plow. So that is something so important. Please, if you take nothing else from this video, think about equipment replacement. Super important. And while we're on the topic of equipment replacement, have a realistic expectation of just how long your machinery is going to last. We take great care of stuff. I didn't used to take great care of stuff. The guys watching this video right now are probably dying laughing when I say we take great care of stuff, because they dealt with me when I was 14, 15, 16, when, you know, I took chainsaws out of the back of my truck, dropped it in wheelbarrow, brought the wheelbarrow in the back of the property, forgot about it. It rained, and I had 2 or 3 chainsaws completely sitting in water for like a week and a half. So take care of your equipment. Your equipment's what making you money. And your equipment is what your selling feature is for your customer. Put the best equipment you can on their property. They might not realize they notice it. You might not think they notice it. But when you show up in a ratty old truck that looks like it's falling apart, and something that has never seen a coat of wax or a coat of paint, and it's held together with duct tape, and you're telling them that you're the best thing out there, and you're charging $150 to do the lawn because you're the most reliable, doesn't look good. It doesn't mean that you have to show up in a brand new 2023 pickup truck. And I'm laughing as I say this because I've got an old beater truck that we use all the time, but I also have a couple good trucks. So have a realistic expectation of just how long your equipment's going to last. Behind me, you can kind of see this wall that's behind me. We've been working in the shop here. We've got one Husky trimmer on the wall, and what we have looks like 6 Red Max trimmers. We've got some steel stuff, and below that we've got some Husqvarna stuff. I have seen guys every single year pile $150 into a weed whacker. Use your brain. They have a realistic lifespan. If we're putting 500 hours a year on our zero turns, which is not unreasonable at all, especially around here, 500 hours a year on our zero turns is a really average number, I would say. Your weed whackers are getting 400 hours a year, at least on the lawns that I'm doing. There's a lot of different variations in lawns, but usually our weed whackers have almost the same amount of hours as our lawn mowers. So think about that. If this weed whacker costs $400 and we got a year and a half out of it, we got 450 or 500 hours out of a $400 piece of machinery. I'm not saying everything should be throwaway, but when it goes bad, is it really worth dropping $120, $150, $200 into fixing it? Or is your best bet taking parts off of it that go bad and buy a new one of the same model? That's what we do. We've got, let's see, there's 4 trimmers of the exact same model up there, 2 of another. The Husky is kind of the odd man out. We gave that one a try. Owen likes that, but it's currently broke down and waiting on a part. But have a realistic expectation of just how long these machines are going to last, guys, because they're not going to last forever. I mean, would we like to have a weed whacker that lasts for 5 years? Sure, we really would. I mean, I would love it. But at some point, if you're mowing, let's say, and we just use that example just now, if we're mowing for an hour and we're weed whacking for an hour on a lawn, then 50% of our income from a lawn is made with a $400 piece of machinery. That doesn't mean that we don't have to have the $20,000 piece of machinery to do it, or 3 or 4 of these guys laying around. But think about that a little bit. You know, once our X marks hit 2,500, maybe you're a 4,000 hour guy. Your X mark hits 4,000 hours, right? It's time to replace it, sure. Do you think about it? Yeah, you're probably a little annoyed that it needs to be replaced, but it happens. If that was a weed whacker, you're trying to keep the thing alive, it doesn't make sense. So use some common sense, set realistic expectations, set that money aside for equipment replacement, and really sit down, run the math on just how much it costs to do a job. So this is something I'm passionate about. I could talk for hours and hours about this stuff, and my friends, you know I can do it, and I have done it. So some of the guys out there that are local, they call me once in a while and say, Tim, how much does it cost an hour to run my zero? How much does it cost an hour to run my weed whacker, the leaf blower, things like that? So have a good network of friends. I appreciate you guys. And thank you for watching From 8 to 38, the Chronicles of a Young Entrepreneur. I will take off my professor hat now and go back to making some different videos. But this was a little bit more of an in-depth video of just how to bid a job and make money cutting lawns. So I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.